Welcome, everybody, and thank you for coming to another edition of the Comic Book Spotlight. I'm going to have my guest, Doug Wagner, who have you seen on the very first Comic Book Spotlight when it wasn't even called Comic Book Spotlight. So let me just introduce the greatest writer I feel like in comic book time, the one and only Doug Wagner.
Hey,
Hey,
Chris.
Doug.
Hey, man. How's it? Thanks for having me back. I appreciate it. I don't know about the greatest writer in our time, but I'll take any compliments you give me.
Oh yeah, I just think you really do really good stuff, and I'm just glad you came back on my show.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. I appreciate the kind words.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And let's just look into the chat a little bit, and we have Stacy Hatch and my good friend Gaz so far.
Yeah. Hey.
I know everybody's going to be coming in slowly, Doug, but I do appreciate everybody that has shown up. And let's see.
You know what Stacy does for work?
She is. I think she takes care of a her daughter at home, and she works from home.
Yeah.
Her husband has um, a YouTube channel where he does figure review.
Oh,
So
wow. Nice. Yeah.
she's a new member, subscriber to my channel, but it's great to have her here.
Yeah. I was just wondering if she was doing something in the public that, if we could try to make her laugh, make her work awkward. But, if she's working at home, that's not quite as easy.
Yeah, she said she was going to be listening on, and I do appreciate Gaz and everybody here for support. We all try to support each other. So I think people were excited about the thumbnail when I kind of said, "What is Doug Wagner up to?" And I know you have something very special, but I thought we would go into a little slideshow. Let me get this going here. Let's see. Uh, Here we go. Screen share. Let me get up and running here. Okay. And let's see. Presentation. Um,
Vince is killing me.
I know. Okay. Let's see. I hope. Okay, let's see. So, okay. Presentation window. Can you see that, Doug?
Oh, yeah, I can see it.
All right, right. So this is our special edition comic book spotlight with Doug Wagner, and there you're at I believe it's a Comic Con.
Yep, that's at Wasatch Comic Con that's here in Salt Lake City. It's run by the Nerd Store guys.
Oh,
They have a chain of comic book shops here in Salt Lake.
that's very awesome. All right, that is so cool. And I thought we'd go into a little bit of your comic book history a little bit.
Let's do it.
Let's see. This one, I'm not going to put it in any particular order,
Hmm.
but this one from Image Comics, Beware the Eye of Odin, issue number 4,
Yep.
published September 21st, 2022. The cover artist was Tim Oderlin, and I hope I get the name right. Color, Michelle Matson.
Yep.
What can you tell us about this particular?
This particular book, like I mean,
Yes.
this was Tim is a really good friend of mine. So, like, when I first moved to Utah, I
Hmm.
started going to some drinking draws, where artists got together and stuff, and I met Tim. Ended up
Right.
Tim and I lived, like, 5 minutes from each other, so we started carpooling,
Mm.
and we just became pretty good friends, decided for, like I think for, like, 3 years, we met at Taco Bell for lunch every day on a Wednesday.
Oh, wow.
And one day he just came to me and he's like, "Hey, dude, do you think we'd wanna work together?" And I was like, "Yeah, dude, I'd love to work with you. Like, you're awesome."
Right.
And I was like, "What do you have anything in mind?" And he's like, "Dude, I wanna draw Vikings fighting trolls." And I was like, "Let's do it."
Wow.
And it kinda, like, grew from there, like, initially, we were gonna do it as, like, a 40-page online comic.
Right.
And, if you've read it, it grew into 200 pages. So, like, we got a little carried away.
Oh,
And,
wow.
Tim and Michelle are both, ironically, first generation Norwegians, so they're Vikings.
Right.
So, like, I didn't have to tell them, like, what a Viking knot would look like or any of those kind of things. And,
Right.
Michelle and Tim are incredible to work with, fantastic people to boot. And so it was just like a really fun book of, like, writing these 3 misfit Vikings that actually have to return the physical Eye of Odin back to the
Mm.
Frost Giant King,
Right.
or it kills them.
Right.
So, it's just like a fun, adventure, you know, call back to the old Ray Harryhausen movies, people fighting monsters kind of thing.
Right.
Fun time, like, developing 3 fun Vikings that were all kind of on the slightly strange side. So, one of the guys only has 1 arm, but he's a pretty badass warrior. And there's a female Viking in there that thinks she's a Valkyrie,
Hmm.
and so, yeah, it was just, a lot of fun. Like, I love that book.
Right. And this was a limited series, 1 through 4, correct?
Correct. Yep, those 4 double-sized issues.
Awesome. Double sided issues.
Yep. That's the only way we could fit it in there.
Oh, wow. I love double sided issues. I don't know about anybody else in the chat, but I just love double sided issues when you just, take them out, open it up, and then you look at the back and you're like, what? This is crazy, But I believe I got some notes on it. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Helgi,
Helgi. Yep.
Helgi, the prince of Viking village, has stumbled upon the cursed Eye of Odin. If he doesn't return it to its rightful owner by the new moon, he will die on an ongoing death of boils and decay. By his side are
Tiger.
Steiger, sorry,
That's okay.
and one armed warrior past his prime, and
Caitlin.
Kate, a female warrior, convinced she's a Viking. Their only path will take them through the treacherous lands of Horgenfolk,
Oh, Holderfolk, yeah.
trolls, and earthen smiths.
Yep.
Very, very cool. I don't know if a lot of um, writers or artists have ever done a kind of like Viking adventure comic book.
You don't see too many of them. I mean, obviously, you've got Thor, with the Marvel universe, and so there's plenty of that, to go around for sure. But
Right,
yeah, you don't see a lot of Viking, like true Viking stories in comics at the moment.
right. Another one of your great comics is from Image. Click, click, boom. Issue number 1. This is cover A. Cover artist was Doug Babs, and the color was done by Matthew Wilson.
Hmm.
Now, this one was interesting because it says Meet Sprout, a mute assassin who communicates exclusively through Polaroid pictures after being raised by her doomsday prepping grandfather in the rolling hills of Idaho. Sprout has grown up with little exposure to other people, TV, or seeing clothes outside the army fatigues. Now she's headed to the big lights of New York City to avenge her grandfather's murder. But will the city memorize glitz and glamour help her succeed or be the death of her? Is this have a little bit to do with her going to maybe a fashion school or?
Oh, no, 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 this one's a complete standalone. So this
Mhm.
is Sprout, and she like you said, I mean, it was fun because like, it's the first time I've ever attempted to write a main character who never says a word.
Right,
Through the entire book, she never says a single word, and she's like this kinda goofy, fun character who's on a revenge trip, like, she's enjoying everything New York has to offer because she's never been exposed to any of that stuff before, and so,
right,
like, when she's not trying to kill people, she's out, getting pizza and hot dogs and hitting the dance clubs and all those kind of fun things.
absolutely. Um, I like the colors on this comic book,
Oh, yeah.
and I think the background, kind of, with the photographs, kind of like, I guess she's like popping out of the
Oh, yeah.
photos. Yeah,
On this cover, yeah.
it's
Like, going through them almost like they're dimensions.
yes. And was this a limited series as well?
Yep, this is a 5-issue miniseries. It's now in trade, and Doug Dabbs did all the interior art, and Matt Wilson did all the colors on the inside too, which they
Okay.
did an amazing job on.
It always seems like the stuff that you write, either it be DC or your your standalone books like Click Click Boom, with different people. Um, I kind of see a theme a little bit. You've done the assassin thing. You've done now Vikings, and another one that I like very much. Kind of goes through um, more. It's more dark, but the next one is Image Plastic Death and Dolls issue.
Yep.
Cover artist Daniel Hilliard
Mhm.
and color Michelle Manson. So once again, Michelle's coming back to do color for you.
Oh, yeah.
Um, I haven't heard much of Michelle. Can you give me a little feedback on her?
Oh, yeah, Michelle's actually done a ton of stuff, a lot of especially for Dark Horse Comics.
Okay.
Um, and, just met her through a friend of a friend kinda thing, and we hit it off, and, she obviously worked on Beware the Avowed, and that's the first book I worked with her on. And
Uh-huh.
so, she did amazing work on that book, and then when we were doing Plastic, Death and Dolls, which is, a follow-up to the original Plastic,
Right.
Laura Martin wasn't available anymore, so, I called up Michelle and said, "Hey, would you like to try to, kinda at least hit the same notes Laura was going for, and then we've got these backup stories that we wanna do something different with."
Right.
Sent in the sample, and it was fantastic, and she's easy to work with, she's an amazing colorist, she's always on time, super professional, like, you can't ask for much better, like, you I love working with good people, and Michelle's one of those.
And then you also have Daniel Hilliard, who's the artist. I've heard of him. Um, it seems like you guys like to be paired together a lot and
Oh,
do
yeah.
a lot of comics together.
We've been working together nonstop probably since 2012, I think.
Hmm.
So we kinda met it he sent some samples into the 12 Gauge Comics guys, and Brian Stelfreeze was there at the time, and Brian showed them to me. He's like, "You should consider working with this guy."
Wow.
And so we hooked up from there, and dude, we're just like 2 peas in a pod. Like,
Hmm.
we love the same dark obviously, we like dark comedy horror.
Right.
Once we kinda got on that track, we talk almost every day. Like,
Mhm.
we've been working together since, and just it's again, I've been lucky that most of the people I've worked with are really good people and really nice people, and Daniel's just one of those nicest people in the world kind of folks, and he's an absolute joy to work with.
Right. And a little bit description here. We learn how Edwin came to his first kill at 10 years old and how that set him on a blood soaked path of decapitations, sporks, and dolls on his way to finding the one true love of his life, a sex doll named Virginia.
Yeah, that's pretty much the gist of the story.
And it's so great that we get, to see. I know we don't like to make killers, big huge star, but it's good to get to know how killers think.
Mhm.
And I was watching a documentary on where they take brains from killers and they kind of dissect them and see what's going on in their brains.
Mhm.
I found it kind of interesting, and they said we're not trying to say that killers are cool, but we want to know more of why some killers kill.
Right.
And I think with plastic, you understand that there's, either people have trauma or they were abused or, there was something that, from the world that kind of sets them off and makes them go down that path. And I like this comic book because it's a lot more gritty, more dark, and I don't think I think in the late '90s, early 2000s, we had more darker comics,
Oh, yeah.
and I think now people tend to go more darker in comics than from the past, where it's more been lighter, easygoing reading. I think people want to um, be in a different world and kind of just get away from reality for a while
Yep.
and enjoy a great comic.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Yeah, and that's what's great about, like, all the indie books you're seeing now. It's all over the place. So, like, if you're looking for something lighthearted and fun, you can find that. If you want something really dark or scary, like, it's all over the place now, and it's wonderful. Like,
Right.
I haven't
Absolutely.
seen content like this ever.
Yeah, and it's great that more writers are willing to go down that path and
Mhm.
challenge themselves in writing. I feel the same way when I'm writing Beautiful People. Issue 4 is really, really getting dark now in my comic book. And I almost thought to myself, I said, well, maybe I should ask Doug and see if what is, you know, too much or not enough, And there's this one scene in my comic book where the killer just goes on this rampage and kills this homeless person in an abandoned warehouse, and it's just bloody.
Mhm.
And I was thinking, am I going a little too far? Or and then I went back to your plastic, and I was looking through it. I was like, well, I don't know. I think I'm fine, but some people might be offended by too much.
Oh, yeah.
And is there a kind of point where you say in your writing, maybe I shouldn't go there?
No.
No.
I Daniel and I, we work real closely on these books too, and so it's one of those deals to where we're writing what we would wanna read.
Mhm.
And what plastic, especially the first one, helped me with, and I think you and I talked a little bit about this on the first one.
Right.
Um, when I was doing that when Daniel and I were doing that book, I would say 50-50 of our 50% of our friends were saying, uh, "Don't do this book, it's gonna end your career."
Right.
And that book has offended a lot of people. And since then, we have done a lot more books that have offended a lot of people. And I
Mhm.
would say offended like politics, those kind of things. But,
Right.
listen, some people, you'll be surprised at a show how mad people will get that I wrote a book that has a sex doll in it.
Right.
And they get super offended by that. And I'm like, well, listen, if that's what you get offended by, like, you might need some help. But,
Right.
so you have to kind of write what you think's right.
Right.
And no matter what you write, I mean, think about this. No matter what you write, people are going to be offended.
Yeah.
Look at the backlash you see from Star Wars
Right.
and, all the Marvel and DC books. No matter what they do, movie wise or book wise, somebody's offended. So you're
Right.
not going to get away from that. So you have to kind of lean into it and just go, listen, I'm going to write the book I would want to read,
Mhm.
knowing that there's going to be people that hate it. and hate me for writing it, and you
No,
have to be okay with that.
yeah. I think with my second project that I'm kind of working on the side while doing writing for beautiful people, Rain District, it's more politics.
Mhm.
And I know I sent it to one friend, and he was like, he sent me a message, and he goes, "I don't like what you wrote," and
Yeah.
I said, "Okay, what did you not like about it?" He said, "I think you were treading thin water," and I said, "Okay, but what do we mean by me treading thin? Just come out and say it." And he says, "Well, you're kind of talking about Trump." And and I kind of skirted around a little bit. And I said, "Well, maybe, but in my comic book, there's no mention of any current politicians or current senators. They're all different names." And I said, "If it offends you, then I understand, but this is what direction I'm going in.
Yeah.
And it's the only way the comic book's going to work if I do it that way." And yes, what has happened in real life as writers, we channel real life stuff
Mhm.
and we put it in our comics. And I think you're right. Some people are just going to not like it, and that's their prerogative. And I just feel like we as writers need to do what's best for us.
Yeah, I mean, did you know, especially if you talk, I don't do anything politically motivated,
Right,
and, like, if you get into doing political stuff, like, yeah, you're definitely gonna, like, there's half the country's gonna hate you,
right.
and there's no way around that, and you just have to be comfortable with that and write the story you think you wanna write, if the message you're trying to tell,
Yeah,
and it doesn't matter. I mean, dude, look at how many people hated Scott Snyder's run on Batman, like,
yeah,
and you're like, "I don't understand why people are so fired up about this," but they get fired up, and they're passionate about it.
yeah,
Yeah, no matter what you do, writing wise, somebody's gonna be upset with what you put on paper.
yeah. And I just feel like we done this on the last stream, and I talked about the female Robin, how people got so bent out of shape about a female Robin,
Mhm.
and I was like, why? Well, there shouldn't be a female Robin. Why? Well, she's too feminine. Okay, but why does that matter? And then let me just see.
Yep, guys, you got it right. Like,
Yeah,
if
right
you're
here.
gonna like it, you don't have to read it. It's
If they get upset about it, what you write about, then you shouldn't read what you're writing. As writers' job is you to write stories that they want to see. That is so true.
yeah, yeah,
So true, guys. So true. And I appreciate that people are voicing their opinion. And so let's get into what you're currently working on.
okay.
Maybe you can give us a little idea before I reveal the actual cover.
Well, of course, it's Daniel Hilliard and I again, along with Michelle Madsen, and we've decided to do a yet another dark comedy horror.
Okay.
And this time we're going to talk about cutting up people and turning them into clothes.
Oh, wow. That is very, very good. Well, not good, meaning I think it's a good project,
It's
but
not something to aspire to, right?
right. And here we go. 3 issues.
Well,
Well,
three covers.
not 3 issues, 3 different covers, I should say.
Mhm.
Sorry. Image, I was a fashion school serial killer.
Yep, that's a book coming out in April. We just announced that last week, I think it was.
Yes.
Yep. And
And that's why I contacted you because I saw that all these great covers were coming out, and I was like, I did not know about this.
yep, we try to keep it secret until Image gives us permission.
Well,
So
do you guys sign a MDA so that you don't tell people ahead of time?
you don't Image isn't going to ask you to sign an NDA, but there's this thing of like it's pretty understood, like in the publishing industry, like If you
Mhm.
leak all this stuff out before the publisher does, then they just don't publish your book.
Oh.
So, it's easy peasy. It's like,
The
yeah.
the reason I say that is because my good friend Chad on his figure his GI Joe station, they were
Mhm.
talking about leaks, and
Right.
sometimes they leak what's coming out as far as new GI Joe classified figures or Transformers.
Mhm.
And so, in the comic book world, is it okay for YouTube channel people to leak your particular hard work early to people to let them know that it's coming out?
Oh, absolutely not. Like, again, like, at no point do you sign a contract that your book is guaranteed to come out.
Right.
So if you let it leak, then Image just might say, "Well, then we're not putting the book out."
Mm,
DC, Marvel, they've done that kind of, they're like, "Hey, listen, if you're gonna be silly about this and not follow the rules, then we just won't publish your work."
right. Right.
So all the leaking you did going, "Oh, my new Image book's coming out." Well, not now. It's like,
So it's not good to leak your stuff.
no, 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 not in the comic industry. You let the publisher lead, and once they say something, then you can leak all you want.
But
But, like, you gotta let them do the announcement.
now, how long did it take you to write this particular comic book?
It was about so it's gonna be 5 issues, and
Right.
it's pretty much about the same, like, it takes me about 6 to 8 months total, when you talk about, like, plot, summary, issue by issue kinda stuff, and then, obviously, once Daniel and, Michelle get done, then it's up
Mhm.
to me to kinda go back and kinda touch up the lettering. And so, total, you're talking 6 to 8 months.
Okay. And can you tell us a little bit about each cover?
Oh, yeah, so we wanted to do 3 covers on each issue. So cover A, we call Blood and Stitches.
Okay.
So it's always gonna be a theme of, like, Rennie, who's our main character, our main serial killer,
Okay.
of her basically creating clothes out of human skin and bone. So that one, that's always gonna be that's Daniel and Michelle, and then we always wanted to do a, fashion magazine homage. So cover B is always gonna be a fashion magazine homage, and this one is from a Janet Jackson cover for Rolling Stone.
Oh, I remember that.
And so, yeah, we kinda recreate it, in our style, and that one's open order, and then every cover C is gonna be 1 in 10, so, like, a retailer will have to order 10 copies of one or covers A and B to get one of these.
Yeah.
And those are always gonna be a special guest, and this one's Jay Lee, who I've always been a monster fan of. So, I was super excited that he was able to join us on this one. He even hand drew the logo on that one.
Yeah. And I actually called my comic book, my Comic Craze, my local retailer, and I told them, you got to order this special cover variant. And I told him, it's coming out in April. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm aware because, I guess the comic stores, they get from Image of what's coming
Mhm.
out pre ordered.
Yep.
And so they're always telling me, you can pre order this, you can pre order that. And I got like so much. I got to go to the comic books shop soon because I got so many comics holding for me.
Yep, I feel you. I'm in the same boat.
He's the same boat. Yeah.
Yep.
I always like to look at other writers and other artists what they're doing. I'm on a big thing with Emma Kubert right now. I think she does incredible work, like yourself,
Well, thanks.
and I'm always on her social media, and she always has a lot of great videos to show of how to do artwork
Mhm.
and what works for her. And she always has great videos. Do you ever think that maybe down the line you would ever do like short videos?
Well, that terrifies me, but I don't like being on camera, so, like, that's it's it's like, I don't it's possible, but, like, at this point, like, immediately, no, like,
Right,
in the short future, but it could happen, you never know.
right. I just think that this comic book is going to be a very interesting read. I love the plastic, and that comic book. I have every issue, so I just love your writing style. It's every time I read it, I'm just like, this is so good. I'm just back and forth. I'm just there's not too many writers that I like, but your style is definitely good.
Oh, thank you,
And
Chris. That means a lot.
oh, well, no problem. One writer to another. So I do appreciate all the writing you've done over the years. Maybe if people didn't catch our first time you were on here, maybe you can give us a little, uh, let us know what other comic books you did besides the ones from Image.
Oh, wow. So, like, I originally started back in Malibu Comics. I did an Ultra Force issue. I was supposed to do more, but they Marvel closed Malibu down before I was able to get all those out. And then
Right.
I worked for Blizzard, and I did a graphic novel for Blizzard, Bloodsworn, World of Warcraft Bloodsworn.
Oh, nice.
And then I did a bunch of stuff custom wise for DC for about 10 years. So it's like stuff you didn't necessarily see in a comic book.
Hmm.
Stuff like for the NFL. I did a lot of stuff for the Flash and Arrow TV shows, Person of Interest as well. Just like short comics for their kind of stuff for promotional use and stuff. And so I did that for a while. And then honestly, like since 2004, most of my stuff has been through Image. So The Ride, The Hard Place, quite a few books through there, and some of the ones you showed, the plastic, vinyl, plush. Um, that's kind of my main flow.
Yeah. And of course, you did DC and Batman.
Oh yeah, I did Legends of the Dark Knight and Batman: Arkham Origins. I worked on a choose your own adventure. That was several writers, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I love Batman, but I always wonder if what direction they're going to go down in the future with Batman because there's only so much you can do with Bruce Wayne, and he's been out what since late
Over almost
fifties.
8 years.
It's been a long time,
Yeah,
and I just feel like maybe they should have a new Batman. It's like maybe his son takes over,
yeah.
and um, I know a lot of people probably won't. No, I know some people don't like change in comics, so um,
I don't mind change. I will say I'm not a fan of passing the cow.
oh,
Yep, I'm not. To me that's always been a strange kind of like there was Tom Brady, and they
yeah,
didn't replace Tom Brady with a new Tom Brady.
right,
Like to me, like I'm like I would rather see like instead of having somebody replace and become a new Batman, how about
right,
Nightwing take over Gotham? Batman's done. There's no more Batman. No, of course they won't do that because Batman sells truckloads of comics.
right.
But I just never been a fan of passing the cow or passing the shield. Those aren't my
No.
favorite stories.
And do you think it's? Here's a good question. Do you think it's hard when a writer has been doing a comic book for so long, and then he decides he's not interested in doing it anymore, and a new guy comes in, but someone that's been reading this comic and this writer for a very long time and enjoying what this writer has been writing, is it hard for them to switch over to a new writer?
I think so. I think that on every level, I think it's hard for the new writer. I mean, who wanted to follow Chris Claremont on the X-Men, right? I mean,
Right,
after what, 20, 30 years of him just dominating the market with his X-Men stories, I don't want to be the guy to follow that up.
right,
And then, Scott Snyder again on the Batman run that he did for, almost over a decade. And it was well received, for the most part. Who wants to follow that?
uh,
It's going to be so different. Like I think you've seen with some of the like Tom King. A lot of people didn't like when Tom King came on a Batman because
yeah,
it was so different than what Scott Snyder was doing. And you'll understand. I mean, as writers, we kind of understand like, hey, everybody's going to have their own version.
right,
You don't have to like it, but like it, the readers are like, hey, wait a minute, I got used to Scott Snyder's style of Batman for 10 years, and
right.
now you've changed it, and I don't like it. it's tough.
All right, right. I'm wondering, okay, everybody in the chat, if you got a question for Doug Wagner, please put it in the chat. I'm going to ask Doug some more questions, but if you have any questions about the new comic book and or what he's done in the past, please put it
Or
in the chat.
whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'll talk about whatever.
yeah. But what I was thinking is, since okay, here's another one. If you were going to take over another comic book
Mhm.
and someone's already written it before and it's very popular, let's just give it an example. Um, the Crow.
Yeah. Whew.
Would you do anything differently, writing style wise?
I think you have to. I really do. I don't think you can walk in. I can't. There's no way I can duplicate what James does.
Uh huh.
Right. So like I'm gonna have to go in and make it my own. And yeah, people are gonna be upset about it. like we talked about earlier, like you're gonna walk into that. But yeah, if you're gonna take over the Crow, something like the Crow that was, create your own book, you
Yeah.
kind of have to make it your own so that like you can write it. I can't write what James writes.
Yeah.
And I can't sit down and try to write what James writes because it's going to turn out horrible.
Right.
So I have to write what Doug writes and
Yeah.
what Doug wants to read. And so it's going to be a change.
I think doing someone else's comic book, you know, people have an idea of what it should be. And I think it's hard for another writer just to, come in there and be like, okay, I'm going to, move in this direction. And people will be like, no, you can't do that, or that's crazy.
Because I would tell you right now, if they said, "Hey, Doug, would you like to write The Crow?" I'd say, "I'd love to write it, but I'm not gonna. There's no way. I'm not touching something like that."
It's a classic. I
Yeah,
mean,
the
it's up there.
Cerebus, books like that. There were classics like that. Cerebus, what's oh God, why Bone? I'm
Yeah.
not touching those books. Like,
Yeah.
there's no reason to do those books. Like they've been done perfectly the first time.
Or The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Those are great, great, great comic books. But we do have a question from Figure Fight Club. It says, Doug, what has been your favorite comic you have ever written and why?
Yeah, I mean, this one's always, people ask me all the time, when I'm at a show or whatever, which one of these books are your favorite?
Right.
It's like, well, they're all my kids, like so it's hard to say which one's necessarily my favorite. But
Right.
I'll always go back to plastic because back to what we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
The main reason, number one, I love the story.
Hmm.
Is still love the story on that one. It's just so weird.
Yeah.
But it proved to me, it changed my life in a lot of ways of like, people were telling us not to do it because it was going to end our careers and we'd never work in comics again.
Hmm.
It proved all of that wrong. And it proved to me that, hey, dude, you need to write what you love and ignore all that.
Right.
And so that book kind of changed my path in my career from that point forward.
Right.
So that's why it will always probably be my favorite because it just showed me like, oh yeah, people actually like the crazy dark comedy horror stupid stuff that you like.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, then I can keep doing this.
Yeah.
And
And there's some funny parts in plastic, especially when he's using the spork,
yeah,
you know. And he always he tells the person why he likes the spork and everything, that they're so good to use. And I was like what? But it had a sense of humor to it, and I was just like, okay, I get it. But he kept on going on about it. um what's the other going to say? When you go to comic cons
hmm
and you have people come up to you, do you ever get someone that's just like so excited they don't even know what to say to you?
Oh yeah, I mean it's kind of weird, because I just feel like a normal person. But, some
Right.
people are such fans of
Yeah.
your work that sometimes they'll come up and they just kind of freeze up.
Yeah.
And I've learned to spot that a little bit. So, then I try to make them as comfortable as I can. I know I've been in the same boat, where I've met somebody that I work,
Right.
work their work, and you're like, "Oh my god, I don't even know what to say other than I love your work." Like, then what do you say? It's like and yeah, that does happen, and I try to make them feel comfortable and
Mhm.
not, you know, break the ice a little bit.
I've seen on your social media page a lot of photos that you shared with people. Well, I'm sorry, with a lot of Comic Cons that you guys have done over the years. What is your favorite Comic Con to do?
Whew, dude, that's a tough one. Because they're all so different. That's what's fantastic about them, right?
Yeah.
They're all so unique and fun. San Diego Comic-Con is always just an amazing event.
Hmm.
Just crazy 5 days of, like, you're gonna be tired for 2 weeks after.
Yeah.
But Heroes Con has always been one of my favorites because it's still a true comic book show.
Hmm.
It really focuses on comics, and the Artist Alley is huge,
Right.
and yeah, that's one of my favorite. Baltimore Comic Con's a great one for the
Yeah.
same reason, and, Emerald City before Jim sold it to Reed Pop. Now, it's still a good show, but before it was sold to Reed Pop, it was one of the best shows in the country as well. Like, for true comic book shows,
Yeah.
Baltimore Heroes and Emerald City were always my 3 favorites.
It always seems like the East Coast comic book conventions are very big, and it seems like they're more, I don't know, publicized, but I think people like more East Coast comic book conventions than West Coast.
Yeah, I think it's just, there's obviously a lot bigger, it's easier to get to the East Coast shows for the East Coast people.
Yeah.
They like it. And then, because dude, I mean, Emerald City,
Hmm.
WonderCon, Rose City Comic Con, even like the little Wasatch Comic Con that you showed a picture of earlier, San Diego Comic Con. There's like so many great shows on the West Side.
Yeah.
Um,
There is, and I think people just see the San Diego Comic Con and they go, "That's it," in LA,
yeah.
and they don't think about the other ones. So here's another question for you, Doug. Uh, Doug, what's something you wish you were involved with but didn't get a chance?
Hmm. That's a good question. Um, I mean, honestly, for me, like the one book that will always be true to my heart is Uncanny X-Men. I
Mm,
would love to have gotten a chance to write a run on Uncanny X-Men.
mm,
Um, I know that's easier said than done because they're not going to let me do whatever I want to do. But
right.
you got a group of writers and editors all working on, there's like 14 X books currently coming out.
Yeah.
Um, I miss the days where there's just one X-Men book. That's me being old and hard headed. But I
Oh,
liked it, when it's just like you could just follow one book, and it was
oh yeah.
the Uncanny X-Men, that kind of like original group. Like, I'd love to get my hands on, like Colossus and Wolverine and Nightcrawler and
Hmm.
Kitty Pryde. That group of heroes was probably my favorite of all time.
Yeah. I like in the '90s. I didn't come into X Men until my friend uh, brought me in on it, and he was like, "You should really read X Men." And I was reading Spider Man at the time, and I was like, well, I like Spider Man. He's like, yeah, but X Men's so much better. And I was like, why? And he's like, well, you got to think it this way. They're a different breed, and they're living in the human world. They have powers. And I was like, okay. But it's just like I said, it's just like another superhero kind of comic book. He goes, but no, you don't get it, Chris. It's the writing. And I said, okay. It's not just what you see on the cover, you know. Um, so I'm glad he did, but I agree with you. When it started getting into the late '90s, I think there were so many different X-Men books that people couldn't follow. There were always people at the comic book store. They would have a big, huge box full of stuff, and they couldn't buy it all.
Mhm.
And the comic book stores would be like, if we're pulling it for you and you can't buy it all, then maybe you should, weed out some of the ones that
Yeah,
you don't want.
first time to get another job.
Yeah.
You had to get 2.
Uh, Tough Nurse Toy says, I don't mind a different writers as long as they don't try to stray too far from the character or core elements and distinctive traits.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, there's room for what if stories and those kind of things, but I think if you're writing the main book or the main character, you should stay pretty true to what the original vision was.
right. Um, on the DC side of things, besides you doing Batman, what comic book would you do if you got a chance to do it on the same
Yeah. I mean, for me, the obvious one's always Lobo. Like
logo?
I think there needs to be more Lobo, always. Honestly, like I would love to take a shot at the Terrifics.
Terrifics.
Yep. I don't necessarily want to run on the big books, like Avengers and Justice League kind of scare me a little bit because they've been around for so long.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't know if I can bring anything new to those.
Mhm.
But I feel like the Terrifics hasn't really yet found its stride yet.
Got you. How about I know she became popular with the Marvel movies, Mrs. Marvel.
Oh, well, is it Miss Marvel or Captain Marvel or
Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel.
yeah, I
Oh,
mean,
that's right. That's two separate things. Miss Marvel is the teen.
right.
Captain Marvel is the more adult.
Yeah.
Yeah, Captain Marvel would.
I would love to write either one of those. Like they're both fantastic characters. Like, they different stages of their life, obviously.
Right.
Um, Captain Marvel will be a little bit tougher for me because I'm not necessarily known for writing, space adventures, and high powered characters.
Hmm.
So that, there'd be a struggle, but I'd love a shot at it.
Yeah, I think you would be great doing it. You did Batman, and I think you may be going back to the superhero writing style. It would be quite different.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see what they'd let me get away with.
That's true. That's true. Stacy Hatch wants to know. So, speaking of Comic Cons, which ones will you be at coming up later this year, Doug?
Yeah, I think let's see. I know I'm going to Emerald City Comic Con again this year.
Okay.
Um, I'm going, I'll be doing Fan X, which is in Salt Lake, Wasatch Comic Con, which is in Salt Lake. Have plans to do Heroes in San Diego.
Okay.
Um, Past those, I don't have anything planned yet.
Yeah.
So we'll see where life leads me, but those are the ones that are on the schedule so far.
Mm. Yeah, my friend, it's Chad and Ryan from 3POA got a press pass to go to San Diego Comic Con. Kind of a little jealous. I said that's in my backyard. He goes, well, why don't you just apply for a pet? I go, isn't it too late to apply for a press pass or a YouTube channel press
Yeah,
pass?
dude, you should. I mean, you got your YouTube channel, so
Yeah.
I don't know what the deadline is on that, but they hand out a lot of those press passes for people that are doing stuff like this.
Uh, the Dead Geek says hi, everybody. He's a real big comic book fan.
Nice.
He likes a lot of comic books. He turned me on to a lot of different comic books that I didn't even know that were out there. And he's like, "Yeah, you should read this if you like, some Doug Wagner stuff." And I said, oh, "Okay, I'll take a look at it." James Lucas says, "Doug, what have you been? Now, what has been your favorite book to work on? And is there one you really want to work on? Sorry if this was already covered."
We covered, the first part of that question earlier. Like Plastic was definitely my favorite book to date, just because it literally changed my life. So I won't go too deep into that one, James. Sorry, we did cover that a little bit earlier. But is there one you really want to work on? I mean, that's a tough one because, like, to be honest with you, like Daniel and I have plans for the next couple of years.
Uh-huh.
So the current book, we've already finished up. I Was a Fashion School Serial Killer, which was a blast. It was my favorite book to work on at the time.
Right.
The book we've just started, which will be later in 2025 before it comes out. But now it's my favorite book to work on.
Mhm.
Luckily, when you're doing creator-owned books, most of the time you're kind of working on the book
Hmm.
you want to work on. It's like it's your favorite book at the time.
Right.
So that's what's always been fun about it. Like plastic, when I was working on that, that was my favorite book I ever worked on at the time. Then vinyl, then plush, then we went
Mhm.
back to plastic. Click, click, boom, Beware the Bones. All of those books, when I was working on them, was the favorite book I wanted to work on at the time.
The Den and Geek says, unfortunately, I'm stuck in the office for a few more minutes. He does tech support.
Oh
So,
yeah, I've been there. I did that for a while.
tech support.
Oh yeah,
So fun, isn't it? When people are yelling at you and
it's
you're just like, I'm trying to help you.
yeah, it's I mean that's part of the writer's journey for a lot of us is you work a lot of odd jobs on the way to making it as a writer.
Yeah.
So I had my share of other jobs on the way.
Can you name one of those odd jobs you had?
Oh yeah, I mean obviously I was in tech support in a couple different companies.
Okay.
Earlier before that, I was a manager of Walden Books. I was a manager at Barnes and Noble because books. I love books.
Yeah.
I was a district manager for a comic book chain of 3 stores for quite some time.
Hmm.
I've worked in construction. I've worked at a ski lift. I've worked as a security guard.
Oh, wow.
Like, that list goes on. I sold print. I sold copiers for a while. Yeah, that list is long.
I'm surprised you didn't work at a GameStop or electronic boutique
No,
store.
no, no. I wanted to stay closer to books.
Oh,
Yeah,
that would be good. Yeah, bookstore. Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. Because my good friend Jay Bartlett, he's done the Nintendo Quest. I don't know if you've seen it on Amazon,
Mhm.
and he went out. I guess it was 30 days to get the whole Nintendo collection
Wow.
to buy it, and within 30 days, without using the internet or cell phones, going to different places around the United States. And he's from Canada, so it's kind of a long trip, to go to different places in the United States.
Yep. That sounds like a fun road trip for a month.
Oh, absolutely! I love his stuff, and he just did a new one called Nintendo 64 Quest.
Nice.
And he's going to do all. He did all. He bought the whole every Nintendo 64 game. Same thing, but I guess they wanted to shorten up the time, so he had less time to buy all these. And I haven't seen it, but everybody keeps on telling me it's a great DVD. What was it that Geek is saying? It says,
Oh yeah, N64 Quest in 14 days for the entire N64 library, and he refuses to fly. That's crazy.
yeah. And then Geek says, mine is financial software, so most clients are very polite. My own managers don't so much. Kidding. The people I work with are actually awesome. Okay. Um, okay, I have another question.
Hit me.
Okay, we'll just leave the question up there. If what advice would you give writers that want to get into the comic book business but are afraid of what people might think, or they feel like Kickstarter is the only way to go?
Ooh, I mean, if you're afraid of what people might think,
Hmm.
I'm just going to be blunt. Then you might want to reconsider writing at all. You can't get away from that. There's
Right.
no way. Not in today's social media
Yeah.
frenzy. Like if you write something, I guarantee you, I will 100% somebody's going to hate it.
Okay.
Have to be okay with that.
All
And
right.
it's tough. I'm not gonna say it's fun and it doesn't hurt,
Yeah.
but there's gonna be people that don't like your work, and you're gonna have to be okay with that.
Hmm.
As far as getting into comics, like if you follow kind of like the trends that have happened over the past couple of years,
Yeah.
most of the comic writers you see started out writing indie and usually for themselves. So
Yeah.
Matt Fraction, Kelly Sudaconic, Brian Michael Bendis, even Scott Snyder was writing novels before he did comics.
Right.
And so like that list goes on and on and on. And so in today's world with the internet, which is free,
Hmm.
you can do comics and post them for free for everybody to see.
Right.
So you just kind of have to start making comics. There's no excuse anymore. You don't have to wait for a publisher to give you permission. Just start making comics. It's
Right.
not easy. It's not cheap, and you got to have some financial, risk involved that you're going to have to be comfortable with.
Yeah.
Um, as far as like Kickstarter being the only way, I mean, it is a way.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've done my fair share of Kickstarters and probably will do more. Um,
Right.
it's a different, comics. What sells in a comic shop might not sell on Kickstarter and vice versa.
Hmm.
So, you just kind of have to measure what works for you. And I mean, like I'm friends with Charlie Stickney and he's killing it on Kickstarter. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, dude, like if you're making money there, why would you bother going to the direct market? Like you're killing it here and you're making a good living doing that.
Right.
Stick with that. I've had friends who were good at, did a lot of comics that sold,
Yeah.
but then they go to Kickstarter and don't make a penny,
Right.
vice versa. So you have to figure out what works for you.
Mhm.
Like nobody's going to follow the same path.
Right. I always hear, and I know it's not true, but some people say, okay, you start a Kickstarter is supposed to just be a Kickstarter. And I don't know in the comic book world, if you keep on going back to Kickstarter, does that mean that you're not successful in what you're doing? Or it's just,
No, that's I think when Kickstarter first came out, people
mhm,
saw it as this is supposed to help you get your business started. And it's not that way anymore. Kickstarter now is just basically a store.
mhm,
And so there's plenty of companies and plenty of creators who are they're basically running their company through Kickstarter. Where in comic books, for me to make a penny on
yeah,
any of the comics I do, I have to sell at least 10,000 copies.
that's a lot.
On Kickstarter, you can make twice as much money selling 1,000. So it's easier to find your market on Kickstarter, I think it is, than in the direct market.
Mhm.
So there's lots of pros and cons to both. But yeah, that I think the old school thinking is Kickstarter was just to kind of kickstart, the whole meaning of it,
Yeah,
kickstart your company. And now it's way past that. Like there's a lot of companies that all they do is their stuff on Kickstarter. And I
yeah.
have no problems with that. Everybody, like whatever works for you and get your stuff out there, that's all that matters.
Okay, I got a question here from James Lucas. Will Uncle Todd be making toys of your characters?
I wish. James, if you got a connection to Uncle Todd, you tell him to give me a call. Like that's I mean they weigh that stuff, and I don't know if my characters are necessarily hot enough for them to spend that kind of, because this costs so much money for them to make those toys.
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
they've got to sell thousands to make it up. Maybe down the road that becomes a thing, but I don't know if my characters right now are popular enough. I mean, Spud's easy, like
Yeah,
that's a mega hit.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I would love for Todd to jump in and want to make toys for me. That'd be fantastic.
Okay, here's a question I have. If let's just say Todd McFarlane came to you today, he
Mhm.
was looking at all your comics. What comic book figure would you want him to create?
I mean, there's the ones that I would want and the ones that I think that would do the best. So I think the characters from Plush,
Hmm.
cannibalistic furries, I think they would sell the best. Uh,
Okay,
but I'm going to start with plastic and do Edwin and Virginia right out of the gate. That's I'd want to start from day one.
right.
So there's the what would I want and what would probably make the most sense.
Yeah. What if Todd said, "Okay, you could only have. I'm only going to do 3 figures, and I want to do it from each comic, but I'm going to give you a choice." So plush would be one, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. You've got three. In the family, there's three cannibalistic furries, so that would be the easy one.
Would plastic be in it?
Oh yeah, dude, I love all my characters, like plastic and vinyl. All three of those books, any of the characters from those, I'd love to see a toy of.
Yeah. Here's another question for Figure Fight Club. What is the average cost for a single issue to get released?
That's to get released. So I'm gonna make some assumptions here. So correct me
Hmm.
if I'm missing anything.
All right.
One thing in the cost of making a single issue for me
Right.
That means I don't get paid. And so I pay Daniel and Michelle and the letterer and the production team and the logo designer and all that kind of stuff. And so
Yes.
there you're talking about per issue a minimum of probably around 10 grand.
Mm.
Now, then you start talking about like, well, what happens, when it gets released and published and all that kind of stuff. And the Image handles a lot of that for me, but they do charge me $2,500 an issue to do that for me.
Okay.
And I also have to pay for all the shipping and the printing. So hopefully you sell enough issues to where they don't send you a bill.
Right.
Like,
So otherwise, if you don't have the funds, they send you a bill.
yes. Yep. You don't sell enough copies, you're going to owe them money.
Okay. And then when you get the bill, how much money are you sending back to them? And like, because, okay, say you sell, and this is probably a crazy number right off the bat. Well, let's just say 1,500. Out of that 1,500, how much do you have to give to Image?
If I sold 1,500 copies,
Yeah.
oh, that means I'm losing a lot of money. So, if I only sold 50, to be honest with you, Image might not print it if there was only 1,500 orders,
Right.
because then you're going to end up owing them a good, 5 to 10 grand.
Mm.
So, you're talking shipping, printing, the $2,500 Image fee. So, for me, like, I've been lucky so far that all my books through Image have at least broken even.
Mhm.
So, that means I don't owe anybody any money, and
Right.
that's always a good place to be. Um, but, not everybody is always that fortunate. So, like, that's why you have to really try to put out the best book you can.
Okay. I'm going to try to get through a lot of these comments. They're coming fast. From the Den of Geek, it says, I love that we're seeing horror comics making a comeback in a big way, especially in the indie comics.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's another one from James Lucas. What are some of your current favorite books aside from your own, of course?
Probably put those in the list. That'd be a little narcissistic, uh, but honestly, like, let's see, like, I really like the New Gods. Hold on, I'll grab some.
Yeah.
Um, I got the New Gods from DC. I've really been enjoying that. I don't know if you guys have checked out Napalm Lullaby by
Oh,
Rick
no.
in Bengal. That's been fun. Loved. I got this from Kickstarter from Justin Jordan. You'll remember him from Luther Strode.
Yes.
Hero Ghost has been a fantastic book. And then Stand Still by
Yeah.
Andrew Robinson,
Yeah.
who lost his house in the LA fires.
Oh, no.
Yep. I've been enjoying that book. So those are kind of the ones that I've been enjoying the most of late.
I noticed that they're going in a different direction with Storm. I saw that they're coming out with, was it Storm 1 or something? And she has a different whole look to her.
She's had a lot of looks over the years, so that's fair.
Yeah. It just surprised me because, I was watching another YouTube channel called Black Comic Lords, and they only talk about, black comic book characters. And
Mhm.
I think a lot of people get rubbed the wrong way, but I know where they're coming from. It's like they're they want to see, more different color representation in comics
Oh,
than we've had in the past. In the late '80s, the '70s, we didn't see that many black comic book characters or Mexican or different races in comic books. And now we're seeing more. But they were talking about the new Storm, and I was like, okay, well, that looks cool. Um, but there was this one guy in the chat. He got really offended, and I was like, dude, it's just race. It's why are you so offended? About a black comic book character or a Mexican comic book character. It's just we're all human. It's all way of life, and you can't see it through just one color glasses, I should say.
yeah. I don't. I, I I mean, my friends are all over the place,
Right.
wise, and that's. I mean, I grew up being an outcast, so like all my friends, we kind of all grew up being outcasts, and
Yeah.
I just, I mean, I don't understand people that are like, I don't want to read about a black character. I'm like, well, no offense, but you're probably racist.
Yeah.
Like I just
Yeah.
like that doesn't matter to me. I loved Black Panther. I
Yeah.
loved the first movie. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
I don't care what color the character is, like if I'm going to enjoy it or not. If it's a female character and it's a good movie, I still love it.
Mm.
Still to this day, one of my favorite movies is Pitch Perfect. Almost all
Oh,
characters.
oh,
It's a fantastic movie.
yeah. How do you feel about James Gunn when he released his teaser trailer for the new Superman?
Hi, dude. I mean, DC has not had the best luck in the world when it comes to movies. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna cross my fingers and wait and see.
I was so excited to see that they had crypto,
Oh yeah, crypto was awesome in it. So
but I don't know if they did they nail the correct dog, because I remember in the cartoon series it was a lot different breed of dog.
yeah,
So in the comics, is it a Pacific dog that crypto was in the comic books?
dude, you got me there. I don't know. All I know is he's a white dog.
Right.
I wasn't necessarily into the lore of crypto and knowing everything about
Because
him.
everybody was complaining about, well, they got the dog right, and they said the dog wasn't right in Teen Titans because there was a younger Superman. It was, I
Mhm.
guess, a clone of Lex Luthor and Superman's DNA,
Yeah.
and they used a different dog, and people were like, "No, that's not the right dog." So here's a new one for Figure Fight Club. It says, "Have you thought about getting someone to do 3D printing of your characters?"
I've tried it. I haven't had the best luck finding a printer to do them. I've been able to find people to do the designs on 3 characters so far, but
Okay.
then trying to find somebody that can, like, deliver, a decent resin figure is just proven to be nearly impossible. So, Figure
Yeah.
Fight Club, like, if you know somebody, hook me up.
Yeah.
Like, I
I,
think I got one, like I must have put it away. Yeah, I've got one of Edwin,
mhm.
and I've got the designs for Virginia and Little Edwin already done. I just can't find anybody that will print them.
I do know someone that does 3D printing, but let me just show you what I had 3D printed.
Mhm.
It's the SWAT vehicle
Oh,
from Rain
cool.
District.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome.
One design, um, kind of based off. Um, there was a Canadian. I don't know if you heard of Rezani.
Yeah.
They do security things for vehicles for celebrities. Well, there was this one out of security company out of Canada, and I kind of didn't really steal it, but kind of just the interior kind of took their idea,
Mhm.
and I
That's
came
good.
up with my idea for the Rain District SWAT vehicle. I think it's really cool. I had the guy do it. It cost me like 400 to get the files done,
Right.
and then another 400 to print it. So
Yeah, mine were, I did run on Edwin. I'll have some of those at Emerald City. There
yeah,
was, like it cost me about 300 to get the design, and then I got quite a few printed, but about 300 to 400 for several figures. But mine isn't a truck. Mine's just a single character. So
yeah. Let's see what else it says. Let's see.
and again,
Um,
you mentioned Scalped, which is a fantastic book.
yeah,
Like,
that's good.
yeah.
Yeah, I saw that comment. Let me start out real fast. He says, I've been reading Scout, which takes place on McConnell Reservation in South Dakota. Okay. Here we go. From Tough Nerd Toys. It's all about the character writing when it comes to writing for ethnic characters, especially black. If the writing is terrible and constantly blaming another race for its struggles.
Yeah, writing any character is key, right? Like if the
Yeah.
writing's bad, no matter what. color, race, shape, what
Yeah.
kind of dog it is. If it's bad, it's not going to work.
No, no. What comic book do you think was the most challenging to write?
Probably a World of Warcraft Bloodsworn. At that point, I wasn't playing World of Warcraft. I have since, but like,
Yeah.
they kind of picked me out of a group of 26 different people and said, "Hey, pitch us an idea." And I pitched an idea and they picked me, and I was kind of surprised because I'd never played World of Warcraft. And they said that's what we wanted. We didn't want somebody who was so steeped in lore that
Right.
they couldn't write something that the average person couldn't read.
Now, is it easier to write a gaming comic book compared to just a regular comic book?
Oh no, it's so much harder.
Really?
So, yeah, usually like when you're dealing with a gaming company, you probably have 5 to 10 different editors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so you're getting notes from all these people on how they want the story to go, and everybody's got a different opinion, and sometimes you'll even get conflicting notes.
Yeah.
And so, when you're working with a gaming company on doing a comic for them, it's really like you've got to be really patient because it's gonna take a lot more work than doing a creator-owned book.
Yeah. I don't know if I would want to do a gaming comic book. I mean, it's you don't want to disrespect what they've written before in the
Mhm.
video game, and then people are so attached to like um, let's see, Solid Snake from Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah,
That lore is so fixed in that if I would write something like that in a comic book, I would be scared
yeah.
because then I don't want to. I'm not necessarily a fan, but I don't want to make people so upset that I change things that they go, "No, that's not Solid Snake."
Oh,
That's
don't worry, they won't let you do that. Like, they have lore experts at all these gaming companies, and everything has to go through them.
yeah.
And so even if you're off on eye color, they'll let you know. Like, they
Oh,
don't let you get away with any of that kind of stuff. So they're like, "Yep, you can't do that." And so that's the struggle is like, with World of Warcraft, I probably spent 3 weeks playing the game for 80 hours a week,
oh
just
wow!
trying to catch up. That doesn't include all the manuals and everything
Oh wow!
to go through. And then they flew me out to Orange County for a week,
Mhm.
and all I did was sit in class learning about World of Warcraft for a week. That's
Mm.
before I even had an idea for the story. So that's all my research I have to do before I even get to that point.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
I think that's a lot. Tough Nerd says versus fighting a good, well-written villain, then it's going to fail. I guess so. Yeah,
That makes sense.
makes sense. What's it going to say? We were talking about GI Joe in the backstage a little bit,
Mhm.
and I kind of wondered. Um, and you already told me why they haven't got Alex Sanchez back on thing, and you said it could be because one, maybe Image has a different idea of what they want for that GI Joe comic book, and maybe they just want to go in a different direction, and maybe Alex's style is a little different than what they're used to.
Yeah, dude, you just don't know with all this stuff. Like every creator's got a different amount of involvement. So
Hmm.
like Scott Snyder's very involved in who's his artist, what the covers look like, what the promotion's going to be.
Hmm.
Then you might get somebody, and I'm just riffing here. You might get somebody like James Tynan who comes in and he's like, I don't care about any of that. I just want to write the book.
Yeah.
So you don't know where Larry Hama's standing on that. You don't know where the editor's standing on that, or even Robert Kirkman, who's running the company. But like you don't know what all variables are involved in those kind of decisions. You just don't know, and
And I
it's
think, not to cut you off, I think there's like so much people involved. There's Skybound, there's Image, there's Larry Hama. I think there's so many people involved that I don't even know who you would start with,
yeah,
because it's like you got the editor, the chief editor, and he's saying, I want it this way. You got another guy saying he wants it this way.
yeah,
And you got Skybound Entertainment saying, look, it's just got to be good.
yeah. We just want it to be the best it can be, and most likely at the very top of it, no matter what. I don't work there, so like I'm guessing, but like if Robert Kirkman says do it this way, you kind of have to do it his way.
Yeah.
So, there's like I said, you don't know what's behind all the scenes and behind all that, and why they
Right.
cover artists they do, or what it might be a friend, it might not be a friend. Yeah, it's so complicated, you know.
And when you choose to team up with a particular artist, um, does Image go, okay, we seen this particular guy used before, so we're okay with it, Doug? Or do they give you a list?
No, no. I mean, Image has really no say so whatsoever in your book.
Okay.
They either like it or they don't. So like you have to be careful on what you're doing. You know what I mean? Like, so I have to make sure I'm picking somebody that I think Image thinks is going to sell. That's what it comes down to.
Right.
And so I usually, like when we were talking, like I send in a 1-page pitch, just
Yep.
this day, and along with 1 or 2 issues fully done,
Yep.
cover to cover, ready to go
Yeah.
to them to get a book approved.
Yeah.
So, there's they've turned down books. There's times where they're like, no, this isn't going to work for us. And you just have to be okay with that. That's just part of the process,
Yeah.
you know?
What do you think about other companies like, um, well, we talked about Malibu. Um, what about, I think there was one called, is it Cosmic Cow or something Cow?
And yeah, Top Cow,
Top Cow.
yeah, they're
Yes.
part of Image. Yeah.
What do you think about Top Cow or Malibu or,
Honestly, I mean, all the companies, generally that I know of that I've worked with, and I've worked for Top Cow in the past too, like they're all great. They
okay.
just all have different directions, like in whether you fit into that direction or not, it's just, like
Mhm.
when you're sending your pitches out to publishers and
Right.
editors, they all have their own tastes,
Yeah.
and one editor might love plastic and the other editor might hate it. And,
Mhm.
it's just personal taste. But like Top Cow's great. Like, when they did Cyberforce for decades, they were
Mhm.
fantastic. Mark Silvestri and Matt Hawkins have always been really nice guys, and always treated me well.
Yeah.
And every company's different, just like people.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Kaz. Yes, Top Cow. You are correct. I'm not Mr. Know It All. I try to. How long has IDW been in business? Do you know?
Wow. At least at least 20 years, I'd guess. I mean,
Okay.
they've gone through different ownership, in different states of being a company.
Hmm.
Um, I know the guys that initially started it were Chris Ryle and oh god, I'm blanking. Ted, Ted Adams.
Okay.
And they've kind of they sold the company and made plenty of money doing that. Now they've kind of gone off and started their own indie comic companies as well.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, they've been around for a while now. I can't remember who owns them now.
Yeah. Okay. And in the news, um, Diamond Select, and they also do comic books under the Diamond brand. How
Mhm.
do you feel about them doing Chapter 11?
Dude, it's not a good thing. Like industry's not, we haven't seen the industry in the shape that it's in ever, at least in our lifetimes.
Right.
Um, and Diamond is kind of like filing for Chapter 11, and the things they've been going through is kind of a sign of the times.
Hmm.
It's concerning. Like I don't know how the future of the direct market looks.
Right.
It's a tough call. I know that a lot of retailers that I'm friends with are just not happy with. Even now they're still shipping stuff late,
Yeah.
like weeks late, and they've kind of had to move away from ordering as much as they can
Yeah.
from other people because Diamond just isn't delivering on their promises.
And it's funny that you say that because last night, some guys from Hello Dope, they're like, I don't know what, you wouldn't call them third party, but I guess you would call them third party. They get a lot of Diamond Select and figures from, third party distributors. And they said Diamond sent them out a email saying that what they could say and what they couldn't say
Mhm.
online. And Hello Dope was kind of up. I don't know if they were upset or they didn't like the way it was said to them.
Mhm.
But Diamond Select was saying that there's nothing wrong they got Chase under them, and that they're going to be in business still, and not to worry. But when you file Chapter 11 and it's all over the internet and things are not coming to them shipping wise, it is a concern, and especially with their comic book um, distribution. I think they said that they were going to sell that off.
Yeah, I could say. I mean, Diamond will probably be fine because they, like you said, the toy market and actually, believe it or not, board games are outselling comics by millions.
Hmm.
So on those two fronts, they probably will be fine. I think they'll reorganize and maybe do away with the comic side of things because it's
Right.
just not making them any money.
Yeah.
But I don't care about tabletop games and and toys. I care about comics. So
Yeah.
like, to me, that scares me a little bit.
Yeah.
Diamond may be fine. I don't know if they'll be in the comic book business.
Yeah. And do you think one of the bigger companies will just take over it and consolidate it?
In a way, I don't. Diamond carries a lot of smaller publishers that the other companies aren't going to touch.
Okay.
So that the downside to Diamond going away will be basically a good 70% of the smaller companies that you see won't have a way to get their comics to comic shops.
Okay. And Tough Nerd Toys says, unfortunately, the writing has been on the wall for Diamond.
Totally agree. It's been that way for it's been this has been coming for a couple of years now. So
It's crazy.
yeah.
Has there ever been a time that you know that a comic book company that was really, really big filed for Chapter 11?
I don't remember specifically chapter 11, but like when I was managing comic book stores,
Hmm.
we had 4 or 5 different distributors. They carried everything.
Yeah.
You could go from Heroes to Diamond to
Mhm.
I can't remember all the names anymore, but like there was 4 or 5 of them that like you could get Marvel, DC, Image, Dark Horse, anything you wanted from all of them.
Right.
And then like you thought they were all going to last forever, and then like within months, all of them but Diamond went away
Wow.
almost overnight.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was kind of like that weird like, oh my god, like
Hmm. Now, I don't know if it's a resurgence or I just saw a pre order for the first issue of Witchblade.
oh yeah.
And I know Image had done Witchblade years ago
Hmm.
in the 90s. So is it a new writer and a whole new team that's doing Witchblade?
I don't know about. I imagine it's since it's Top Cow, that's who does Witchblade.
Right.
And they've kind of relaunched I think Witchblade once or twice already.
Okay.
I think it's just a new iteration of it. I don't know who's I'd imagine most of the time Matt Hawkins is the guy that's writing most of their books,
Okay.
but I don't know who the team is behind it.
I just found it interesting because, they were, when they were with Image, they were like on top of the world with Witchblade
Oh
in the
yeah.
90s. And then all of a sudden kind of like fizzled out. And I didn't see it for a while. And then someone told me, oh, yeah, it's now with Top Cow, like you said.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And now I just saw this, it's a beautiful cover. And it was on an Instagram post. Uh, Image had posted a pre order for it.
Mhm.
Let's see. And it looks really, really good. But the female character looks a little different from what I remember.
Oh yeah, they got to change her costume because you remember the '90s when it was basically a bikini.
Yes.
Like, that doesn't go as well. I'm looking at the thing now. So they've got a new artist. One I haven't, that I don't think's done Witchblade before, but they've got Marguerite Bennett is co-writing it with Mark Silvestri.
Oh, okay.
So that yeah, I mean Marguerite Bennett's fantastic. So that'll be interesting to see what she pulls into the Witchblade universe.
And actually, Mark has done a lot of stuff over the years. So
Mhm.
this one's from Tough Nerd Toys. It says when I had an online toy store, they were shipping items terribly and would then try to take the legal action when you cancel your order once the items were off and are unsellable due to things being late.
Oh yeah, Diamond's always been kind of
Uh,
shifty and shady about
I don't know.
it. They were never really great about shipping books.
Mhm. Now, since there is Gunn is doing DC movies and trying to revamp the DC universe as far as movies are concerned, do you think Marvel will sit back and not produce as many movies as they had done in the past?
Oh no, I would bet they produce more. Marvel and DC have always been at war, as we know,
Yeah,
and Marvel's kind of owned the cinematic universe for, well, forever, in comparison to DC.
yeah,
And so, I mean, I know the slate. Now I do think that had something to do with them going and get the Russo brothers and Robert Downey Jr. back. I think they went,
right.
God, Gunn's going to try to do good movies. We better get back to doing good movies.
Yeah, and I agree. I think a lot of people were kind of happy that Robert Downey Jr. is coming back to do another character,
Mhm.
but at the same time, I think people just see him as Iron Man, and he's done it for so long that I don't know if people are gonna be able to associate, hey, he's doing a different role now. Is he gonna do just as good a job as he did in Iron Man?
Yeah, I mean, Robert Downey Jr. is going to deliver when it comes to acting. There's no doubt about it. It'll really, as we've all stated throughout this whole thing, like it'll come down to the writing. If it's good writing, people will love it. If it's not, they won't.
Okay. Here's a good point. Talk about writing. Star Wars universe. There
Mhm.
has been really bad shows of lately on Disney. Why don't they just contact a comic book writer to do Star Wars?
I mean, I'm with you on that, but yeah, dude, I don't know. I mean, it's the current group there um, just doesn't seem to. I think they're writing for kids, and when I say kids, I mean little kids,
Yeah,
and it's just not working. For I think the Star Wars fans that have been around for a long time, and I think they're trying their best. I just think that yeah, they need to reach out a little bit farther and find if they can see if they can find some people that are can come up with better stories than what they've been doing.
yeah. I've read so many different interviews with George Lucas, and finally he came out and said that when he sold um, the whole Star Wars Lucas Entertainment to Disney, they didn't want him to do anything with the new movies.
Yeah,
They just said, no, we know what we're going to do with it. And this is fact. He said, and it was quoted by him, that they only cared about the vehicles in Star Wars and not the characters.
toys sell. Toys probably make more money than movies. So
So I couldn't believe that because, George Lucas spent tons of time on doing stuff from medieval, different wars, different, medieval times, everything to create Star Wars, And I just think Disney is disrespecting the hard work that George Lucas has done over the years and just say, hey, look, it's ours now. There's nothing you can do about it. How would you feel if someone took one of your comic books and said, okay, it's not yours anymore. You sold it to us, and we're going to do it whatever we want to do with it.
I mean, it's not fun, but it does happen. And honestly, that's kind of how Hollywood works. Like when they come, they get the thing and they get to go do whatever they want. And Hollywood and making movies and TV shows is so complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't know what you really don't. Even if you had the best laid plans,
Yeah,
unless you go to Robert Kirkman and you did it all yourself,
yeah,
there's no way you can guarantee what's going to come out because like even if you have a screenplay and everybody agrees on that and you get down once the director starts directing it, he gets to do whatever he wants,
yeah,
so you don't know how that's going to pan out.
yeah. I don't want to keep you too long, but Tough Nerds Toy says, I highly doubt Marvel will ever be able to capture lightning in a bottle as phase one. Again, as Doug stated, it's all about writing.
I mean, he's tough nerd stores isn't wrong. Like that's a tough. They did so well on phase one. It was so amazing. Like all the movies, we could argue about it, but most of the movies were fantastic. And to keep that up over decades is so hard to pull off. Like,
Yeah. As the guy says, honestly, he sold it. He doesn't really have a say.
yeah, I mean, once he signs the contract, like he's the one that agreed to the terms.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, this is not wrong either.
I would just like to see him buy it back, but that's not going to happen. So,
Okay. No, Disney's not going to give up that honey pot, even though they're putting out. And we can discuss it.
right.
They're not putting out the best of content. They're
No,
still making millions off of it.
no. Everybody keeps on saying that they should do Knights of the Old Republic or go back and do the Clone Wars, more in depth stuff after the prequel number three.
Yeah,
And I said, yeah, that's a good idea, but I think they should do characters that haven't been done, like Raven, and there's so many other.
I mean,
Lucas says there's so many other Jedi's that they can do.
yeah. There's so much content there, and they keep kind of skirting around it. But I don't know. We'll see.
Tough Nerd Toy says, and with Star Wars, just put what sold well in books on screen.
That'd be interesting. I mean, they Timothy Zahn did some amazing books in that series, for Star Wars, and they were fantastic. And there was a lot of great books that came out.
Yeah.
Why not dip into that? I mean, that's what the Marvel, cinematic universe did. They went and, for the most part, they grabbed what sold well in comics, the best stories from comics.
I would like to see, I know they've already done it, but I would like to see a different writer do it. It's an 80s TV show, Knight Rider.
Oh yeah,
I would like to see, I saw them do, I don't know what company did it. I don't know if it was Malibu or it was one of those indie comics, but they did Knight Rider and it wasn't really done well. I read it and I was just like, this is not Knight Rider. This is,
I'm 90% sure they did do a new Knight Rider TV show.
yes. They
Anyway,
did, they did, actually there was three TV series that they did. The original Knight Rider, what we all love,
yeah,
and then they did Team Knight Rider with all different versions of kits, as they call it, and then they rebooted it with a was it Michael Knight's son, as
yeah,
they explained it, and where David Hasselhoff made an appearance, and then the voice was done by Val Kilmer
hmm
as the kit, and it only went, I think, like if I'm not correct, I think 15 issues, 15 episodes.
yeah. I think it was like a half a season or maybe one season, but I don't think it made
Yeah,
that
and
'cause
it wasn't well received. It's
it
like
was bad. It was
it
so bad.
was horribly done, and I don't know why David Hasselhoff would even put his name on it.
Because they paid him. David will do anything for money.
You
So
think so?
yeah,
What was I was going to say? What property would you, as far as TV shows, would you like to see them put in a comic book?
comic book, huh? That's a tough one. I'm not usually a fan of stuff that comes from movie and TV and made into comics because this is never the same, right? Like it just doesn't carry over well. I mean, they've tried stuff like Stranger Things and it just Star Trek and those kind of things, and it just never seems to carry the same weight. You know
Mhm.
what? Fargo,
Fargo.
The Fargo TV show
That would be good.
comic.
I was looking into what would work for TV as far as reality shows,
hmm
and I don't know if you ever heard of Destination Fear.
Oh yeah,
Well, they have Project Fear now, and of course, the company didn't renew them, and so they went on their own, and now they're on YouTube, and they're like huge. And Project Fear, and I was like, if I got when I get my first comic book out, I was thinking about pitching to them to do a Project Fear comic book, but not based on the investigations they've done in the past, but ones they've never done before.
Yeah. Why
And
not?
it would be easy to write because you're basically just writing like you would have saw on TV. You
Yeah.
know, it's not too hard um, because it's all there. I know what they do in each episode, so it's like you could write it in a way that like you're watching the show, but
Yeah.
in comic book form. I don't know how well that would go off, but
You
I'm
don't know
thinking
do it.
I'm thinking with all their followers, it'd be easy to, say once I'm established, go to Imaging or whoever company it is and say, what is it? Guy says, Big Trouble in Little China as a comic book series would be cool. We need more adventures with Jack Burton and the Pork Chop Express.
That's one of my favorite movies. So I have to agree. Like I, I love that. I love that movie.
You love that movie?
Oh yeah.
Oh, one movie that I love, and a lot of people love it too. It's a cult favorite, Flash Gordon.
Oh yeah. The original. Yeah. Theme song by Queen.
Yep.
Yep.
And I keep on hearing that they want to reboot it, and I'm like, no, don't touch it.
Yeah. Well,
Don't
that's
touch it.
Hollywood, right? They want to reboot everything.
And the guy that was in the movie um, is saying that they shouldn't touch it either. It's like he's like, dude, it's just fine the way it was, and people love it. Queen, you can't get a better soundtrack.
Nope.
Um, he goes, I don't understand Hollywood these days. He said that he feels like they're rebooting all these classic movies that don't need to be touched.
Yeah.
You know,
They think it comes with a built-in audience, and it doesn't. But you know,
do you think they're trying to get the children that latched onto their parents' idea of great movies and trying to, bring them in to what they feel like these kids want to see?
no. I mean, I've dealt with enough Hollywood people. Like, dude, they're just grasping at straws, and
That's
it's
right. That's right.
they love stuff that has pre-existing IP because then they think it comes in with a built-in fan base,
Yeah.
which has been proven time and again it doesn't. You
Yeah.
know, in this past year, well, everything the movies industry since, especially theater, since the pandemic has
Yeah.
never recovered, and so they're struggling to figure out why it's not working, and they're trying all the new old stuff versus trying to figure out what works.
Yeah.
The Last Starfighter, another good movie.
Another good movie that could be a comic book. Actually, I heard that they're in talks to do The Last Starfighter too.
Yeah, that's been going on for a while.
Yeah.
So,
I know the last time I heard they were at a comic convention, they were talking about it, and I guess they got back to a reunion, and they said that there was big talks, but the script wasn't quite there to their liking,
mhm.
and that it was being rewritten again.
I'm with Stacy. I won't watch reboots of movies I love. I don't want them ruined.
There you go. Stacey Dash says, I won't watch reboots of movies I love. I don't want them ruined for me. I agree.
I won't watch sequels of franchises that I love.
Yeah.
For the same reason. Every now and then I'll dip my toe in like the Aliens franchise,
Yeah.
and then I'll immediately walk away going, forget that. That never happened.
Well, everybody kept on telling me about Romulus, and they said, you got to watch it, Chris. And I said, well, I'm not going to go pay to go see it. I'll wait until it comes on Disney Plus so I can watch it for free.
Yep.
Of course, I'm still paying for it, but I'm not going to pay a
Yeah.
ticket to go to the movie theater because I was kind of standoffish with it because I was like, I liked 1 and 2. The other ones, 3, 4 misses. And, I know Romulus was going back and everything. And, well, no, Romulus was going kind of back. No, was it forward? I get confused because
I don't know. I haven't seen it, so I
they
can't.
did some prequels before. Ridley Scott did some prequels
Yeah.
of Aliens, which I didn't know why he did that. I think he just should have stayed with what was best. Once you have a good movie that did well, and then they're trying to duplicate it, I think if it's just one and done, it's fine. Like Predator. Predator,
Yeah, Predator was the perfect movie.
one and done, fine.
Yep.
I love two, but one and done. It should have ended with Arnold.
Mhm.
Done. Um, I know a lot of people in the chat are probably going to disagree with me, but that's okay. Gaz says, I saw Flash Gordon. I say Flash Gordon or Buck Rogers reboot would be cool if they stick to the concept and not overcomplicate it. Hmm,
It could work.
they could.
I trust him to do it, but it could work.
But I don't know. Just Buck Rogers, okay. Flash Gordon, no. Uh,
Chris isn't having it.
yeah. I mean, I went when I was I think I had to be in my teens when I saw Flash Gordon in the movie theater, and I was just like, "This is such a cool movie." Because I remember my dad talking about going to the movie theater when he was very young, and the little mini series, the cliffhangers they would have.
Yep.
And I said, "Well, how much did that cost back then?" And he said, "Like, I think like 50 cents to get into the movie theater." And I said, and he just kept on going back. And he's like, yeah, my parents would try to get me out of the house, and I would go and watch these cliffhangers and saw Flash Gordon. What else it says? It says, Gad says, I don't know, that last Predator film was freaking good. Prey? Guys, are you talking about Prey? Maybe he can tell us later on. Um, So, what do you have besides putting out the new comic book? Do you have anything that you're currently working on?
Oh yeah. I mean, I can't discuss any of that stuff,
Of course.
but yeah, obviously always working on new stuff.
Mm.
You got to keep your head down and keep moving forward.
Are you working on several projects or just
Oh
one?
yeah. Yeah, I've got 3 projects currently going on.
God, I don't know how you do it, Doug. I
Easy.
don't know. I know it's easy for you. For me,
No, it's not easy.
I think for me, it's like just doing my first comic book. It's like sometimes I second guess myself, and
Oh,
then I go back and I rewrite it again to what I originally put my thoughts down, and I went back looking at the first issue and I caught a few mistakes, and I was like, why did I put that there when I should have said this? You ever do that when you go back and you catch yourself
oh
when
yeah.
you already written something for a first issue, and then you go back and you're working on another issue, and you go back and you go, well, why did I do that? Or
Oh
do you
yeah.
ever second guess yourself?
Process, and you have to, if you've written yourself in a corner, you got to learn to write yourself
Yeah.
out. So that's part of the fun.
Well, I know I wrote it something and it didn't make sense. And I went back and I said, well, in the previous issue, I said this. So if I say this in this issue, it doesn't make sense and the reader gets confused.
Yeah.
So I had to go back and change a few things because I had one of the characters calling another character. And I was like, well, no, she wouldn't do that because, you know, why would she give the character David Drake a heads up what was going on with the detective. So I had to go back and change it. And sometimes it's like you make a mistake and you're like, that's not going to make sense. The reader's going to get confused and then they're going to be like, this is all over the place. It's not good. Have you ever had a comic that just bombed?
I mean, bomb is a different, depending on, like I've had books that sold enough to break even, but not make me any money.
Right.
So, in a way, that's a bomb.
Yeah.
It's like you spend 8 months on something and you don't get a penny out of it. That's not a good thing.
So do you figure out what you did wrong or what you could have done better
I don't, I
to
don't think you can dwell on that. I think you have to keep moving on. Like you just have to admit that that book didn't sell well and learn the lessons you can from it. Like, hey, maybe I didn't market it well. Maybe this book just wasn't for everybody. Those kind of things, and you just kind of move on to the next step.
Gas says yes, the one with the Native American characters.
Yep.
Yep, Prey was good. I
Yeah,
agree.
it was okay. Yeah,
Yeah, I think they're doing a sequel to the Prey. I think
yeah.
they're.
It's gonna be in World War II.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't like the Predator in Prey. To be honest, the way it looked,
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of hokey, and I was just like, no, I didn't like it. But I liked the show premise. I thought it was
Mhm.
pretty cool. Okay, I don't want to keep you,
Yep.
so
We've been on here for 2 hours.
I know. And last time I did that with Alex Sanchez, I was only supposed to have him for an hour, and his wife came after me.
Oh gosh, yeah. You don't want that.
Yeah, because wanted to watch a movie with her, but once you get Alex start talking, he just keeps on talking and talking. And so I want to thank everybody. I want to thank my guest, Doug Wagner, again.
My
Please
pleasure.
go out and buy Doug Wagner's new comic book on April what?
I think it's April 2nd.
April 2nd, people. It's going to be a great comic book. Fashion a student that's a serial killer, correct?
Yep.
And done by great people, Doug Wagner and Hillary, right?
Yep. Hilliard. Yep.
So thanks again for coming on the show, Doug.
Yep.
And we are going to be out, everybody.
Thanks so much, guys.